So about 10 years ago, I was running a website called hl2mapping.com. It was Half-Life 2 level design, tutorials, and forums. And because some of my roots are in level design, I love making my own levels, doing level design. And in Unity, you can't really do that because these shapes are pretty much for prototyping. You can't do level design with that stuff. So that's where ProCore comes in. Now, ProCore is an asset store publisher. I'm sure you've heard of them, so I don't need to talk a lot about it. But we're going to be doing a tutorial today with ProBuilder Advanced and ProGrids 2. Now, both of those come in the ProCore bundle, and there's also ProBuilder Basic, which is free. So you can use these tools in any level. Hopefully, this tutorial will help you out and help you get started with level design. Now, this is just an intro video. There's going to be a series on ProCore tools. So in a future video, we're doing a giveaway for ProBuilder Advanced and Polybrush, which is about $150 worth of tool. So stay tuned for that. All right, now, I've already got ProBuilder Advanced and ProGrids 2 imported into my Unity scene. I got Google VR here. I have some textures that are 512 by 512 because we're doing mobile VR development. I think 512 by 512 is a good place to start. So I got some textures. I have ProBuilder and ProGrids. And so if I go to tools, I have ProBuilder and ProGrids. ProGrids window is going to bring up the ProGrids window. And then I'm going to go to ProBuilder and bring up the ProBuilder window. Now the ProBuilder window, you can dock it wherever you want. I like it over here and squeeze it down. Okay, now we're ready to get started. Let me just create a scene here. Okay, so we got a new scene. Now what we're gonna do is just build 2 rooms and be able to walk in between them, and it's gonna work for VR and Google Cardboard or Gear VR. So right now I got my main camera. In order to get the Google VR working, I need to bring in the GVR viewer main prefab. Okay, now we're ready to go. I should have a VR camera. And just to talk about versions here, I'm using Google VR version 1.0 and I'm using Unity 5.4.2. Okay, so the VR is working and we're ready to get started. This is the button to build a new shape. We got cube. There's a whole bunch of shapes in here. We're going to get into some of these later. But right now, let's build a cube that's 1 by 1 by 1 because that's essentially the same as creating a Unity cube. All right, now this is shaded. Now, because I'm developing for mobile VR, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my build settings and I'm going to go to player settings. I already have it set to Android. I've not switched platform to that, but okay, now let's talk about the rendering path. Unity has multiple rendering paths available, deferred, forward, legacy, vertex lit, and so the default is forward, and that's really good for mobile VR. Deferred is probably really bad for mobile VR, but we're gonna go a step further and take it to legacy vertex lit. Now, ProBuilder has a set of tools that let you vertex color here it is right here, the vertex color editors. Vertex color while you're building, which helps you prototype. And if we use legacy vertex lit, this feature isn't available. So just be aware of that. But what legacy vertex lit is going to allow us to do is it's going to allow us to use dynamic lights in our levels, and it's going to run really fast for our mobile VR phones. Okay, so we got legacy vertex lit set. We're building to Android. Now the cube looks a bit different, but it still has dynamic light on it, and this is a real-time light, and so moving it obviously doesn't do anything, but rotating it, you'll see that the lighting changes. Now, what vertex lit means is here's the vertices, and it's lighting at each vertice. So it's not lighting the whole entire texture. It's only lighting wherever there is a vertice. So that's why for mobile VR development, the lighting will be a lot faster for real-time lighting calculation. Okay, so this is the, we got the object, the vertex, the edge selection, and the face selection mode. And this lets us completely control our geometry. All right, so we got a cube. That's great. We can do stuff with it like select a face. And if I hold down shift, and this is why I have this running down here. If I hold down shift and click, I can extrude. And if I select an edge, for example, I can pull that up. And then the vertices work the same way. I can manipulate individual vertices. So let's build a room with these tools. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to set up a default unit size. Okay, so because I'm using Legacy Vertex Lit, I kind of need to have an even amount of vertices throughout the level so that the lighting is equal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build a floor unit, and then that's going to get duplicated. So I'm going to create a plane, and I'm going to use a size of 2.5 by 2.5 because I've already figured out that works pretty good for 512 by 512 textures with the VR setup. Now for the width and length, I'm going to do 0 because what that's going to do is just going to make a quad. And so I'm going to build that plane. So now I have a quad with the default texture on it. Now I have some textures in here already. So let me look at floors and pick a floor. This should work fine. There we go. Now I want the 512 by 512 texture will always fit into a set amount, and figure out what that is, because textile density is important in video games. And what that means is you need to make sure that a pixel is always the same size. This is a good article about it, but you'll see that the pixels here are not the same size. So if I were to duplicate this object with Control D and then scale it, you'll see that the pixels here are totally different sizes, even though it's the same texture, and that makes the game look really bad. So we need to, before we get building, we need to set what size our 512 by 512 textures are going to be in the world, and always maintain that density throughout all textures, and so all the pixels in the game are the same size. So 2.5, the size of this floor unit, is going to be equal to a 512 texture size. So I need to open up the UV editor, which is right here. Now the UV editor lets me do all the UV editing right here, and you'll see that it doesn't fit. It's textured about, let's see, 2.5 times. And I want that 512 to fit. So what I need to do is convert to manual. And then I'm going to click Fit UVs. And now that 512 by 512 texture is fit exactly to this 2.5 size. So it's, for my own notes, I would say 512 by 512 pixels in the game is equal to 2.5 units. Now I'm going to convert to auto, and here's why. Let me go back to manual. If I were to extrude an edge, you'll see that it doesn't keep the correct texture scale because it's on manual UV editing. So if I convert back to auto, and I were to extrude an edge, extrude doesn't work, but I'll show you what does work. If I were to select the edge and drag it out this way, you'll see that it's keeping the correct texture scale and it's not stretching that texture out. So auto UV automatically is going to keep this correct texture scale. Now I don't want to do that. It needs to be 2.5 by 2.5. So this is my floor unit, and I'm going to name this floor unit. Okay, I named it Unity. Okay, so now with ProGrids, this is automatically going to snap to the grid. And so I want to bring it to a Y of 0 because that's, I guess that's where the ground is. So this floor unit's at 0, 0, 0. Now if I was doing forward rendering, I would probably stretch the mesh out to reduce the number of vertices. But because I'm using legacy vertex lit and I'm using real-time lighting, I want vertices at an equal interval throughout the whole entire level so that the lighting responds to all the level geometry the same. So what that means is if I was using forward rendering, what I would probably do is stretch this out to here and make this so there's only 4 vertices, 1, 2, 3, 4. But because I'm using the legacy vertex lit, the lighting is only going to respond to each vertice. So if I did this, let me demonstrate real quick. We're going to create a light, and it's going to be a point light, and let's make it red. Okay, so this light has a range of 10. So it looks pretty good right here. And but the problem is, because there's only 4 vertices, 1, 2, 3, 4, if this light with a range of 10 gets away from these 2 vertices, you won't see it respond at all to this. There it is. So now there's going to be no red light at all until it gets all the way over here and it gets close to some vertices, and then it can start lighting up again. Now the other problem with that is the light is going, because there's only 2 vertices here and 2 vertices here, it's going to blend the red light all halfway to these vertices, and it shouldn't go that far. It should only, go maybe this far. So if we were using the forward rendering, you want less vertices. That's going to be better to render. But because we're using legacy vertex lit, we're going to want to keep an equal number of vertices throughout the entire level. So let me make that point light again, give it a red. And let's turn off the sun for a second. And I'm going to duplicate this object. I'm going to make sure I have object mode selected and Control D. Now ProGrids makes this snap right into place. And I can increase and decrease my size with the minus and plus key. So I could go to maybe 0.5 to make it snap a little easier. So now that I have, let me select all of these objects and look at the vertices. Now that I have vertices all the way down here, if I move the red light, you'll see that it can light up properly. So if there's too many vertices, the lighting's going to be too accurate, I guess, which probably isn't a problem. But if there's too few vertices, the lighting is not going to work very good. So we want to have basically 4 vertices every 2.5 units. And 2.5 is equal to a 512 texture. Okay, so now that we have some of the basics defined on how we're going to build our level, we're ready to get started. I'm going to turn the sun back on. And we already have a floor started. So let me just select all my floor units. And I'm going to press Control D. Okay, perfect. Now I want to save one floor unit, and I'll make that a prefab for later. So let me create a folder called prefabs, and I'm going to drag floor unit into there, and then I'm going to delete floor unit. So I always have a floor unit that I can go get, which is the correct UV map and size. Okay, so now I'm going to select all the floor units, and I'm going to click on this button right here, which is merge objects, and that's going to merge down into one mesh, so we don't have so many. I'm going to name that floor, and it has 3 O's in it. Okay, so we got the floor. It's one object now, and it's going to respond to our lighting properly. Okay, so now let's build the walls. The wall is going to be built the same way. Let me just create a new shape, and I find it handy to start walls with cubes. So it's going to be 2.5, 2.5, 2.5, and then we need to look at our floor here, because we created a material automatically and we didn't pay attention to what we were doing. So that is this one here. And let's find it by clicking on materials. There it is. I'm going to create a folder called materials. And I want to have that material in my materials folder. And so for these floors, we're going to be using mobile vertex lit. So for every texture that we use, we need to make sure it has a material and that it is mobile vertex lit. All right, so let's pick a wall. All right, this one looks good. So I'm going to drag it on. Now that automatically creates a material. So I need to make sure that I set that to a legacy, or to a mobile vertex lit. And we need to fix the UV on this. So let's click the UV window, and we're going to select now the whole cube here has the problem. So what we're going to do is select one face, and I want to convert all of the faces. So if I can convert to manual, it's going to say set one faces to manual. This face is still automatic. So typically when I'm dealing with an object, I want to select all the faces and convert to either auto or manual. In this case, manual, and I'm going to say fit UVs. That's going to make the texture fit. Now it's kind of hard to see on one side. It's kind of dark, so I'm going to duplicate the, well, no, instead of duplicating the directional light, let's go to the lighting tab, and let's do a color for the ambient lighting and increase that so it's a little easier to see. We may reduce that later in the game. Okay, so we got the cube properly mapped at the correct pixel density. Now I'm going to move it into place to be a wall. Okay, so I decided to use a different texture here. So we're going to switch it to mobile vertex lit. And this is going to be the wall unit. So I want to make it a little bit more interesting than this. This looks okay, but I want to bring a little bit of 3D into it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to select an edge. And I'm going to go to Insert Edge Loop. And that's going to split it in half. Now I can slide this, but it's going to mess up the texture, because right now the the UV map is set to manual. So if I select the entire model, or all of the faces, and I switch back to auto, well, now we got a mess because I've split it in half. Let me fix this real quick. I'm going to undo, and then I'm going to select the entire. I'm going to convert back to auto, and now we're going to select that edge and insert the edge loop. Okay. Now let's go back into the let's reinsert that edge loop. I Control Z back. There we go. Now the edge loop is selected. I can slide it wherever I like, and you can see that that it's automatically fixing the texture. So this is toggling the grid on and off. I actually want to keep it on. I just want to press the minus key to reduce it to a spot to where I can get it. There we go. That's pretty close. And now I'm going to insert another edge loop. And when you insert an edge loop, if you select an edge, it'll make a T like that. So just perpendicular to where you're at. So this edge loop I want to have right here, and I'm going to bring it down to 0.0625 grid snap. And that doesn't help. It's still in the best spot. Now we're going to do another edge loop by selecting this edge. I'm trying to get at these four in the middle. So let me put another edge loop in this way, and then slide that there. I'm going to do that once more. Okay, now I can select this face, and I wanna push it back in. I think that'll look cool. So I'm gonna hold down Shift, which is for extrude. Now Shift, if I go this way, it's gonna extrude out, and you'll see that it properly extrudes the geometry. But in this case, I want to extrude in. And now it's messed up the texture. So we're going to use the auto stitch feature. So I'm going to select this face. I'm going to hold down Control, and I'm going to click on this face, and nothing's going to happen. But if you have the UV editor open, it's going to automatically stitch. Now watch what it's going to do here. I'm going to hold down Control, click. It's going to automatically stitch that UV. So I'm going to Control click to here. And I'm going to do the same thing this way. Control click there. And that's not going to quite line up. So I'm going to manually fix this one by sliding it over to here. And that should look okay. It's not perfect. Let's select that face and auto stitch that one. So that could look better, but it'll be okay for the moment. Fix the top and the bottom with Control click to auto stitch that texture. Now the reason why I think it's going to look fine is because I want to get a different texture on this one. Okay, I think I'm going to try the square in the middle. So if I select this and I drag it on, it's going to replace the entire thing. So that's no good. Let me Control Z. So what I can do is I can select this face, and I can say delete face. I don't want to do that, but I do want to extrude the face. No, I want to do this one, which is detach face. So that's detached it to a new object. Now I can apply this material to it. Now I need to select the object to do that. There we go. And we're going to have the same problem because we need to go mobile vertex lit. And make sure they all are set to mobile vertex lit. Okay, now this doesn't look right, so I need to go to the UV editor and move it over. To right there. All right, that looks good. I'm gonna make a prefab out of this. I'm gonna call it wall unit and drag it to the prefabs. Now, if I duplicate this, it looks fine, but we kind of got a problem. It's missing that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select these two, and I'm going to go to this button, which is merge objects. Now it's going to merge those into one object. I'm going to call it wall unit again. And you'll see it has the two materials assigned. So that's fine. It does need to have the two different materials since I got two different textures on it. And now I need to update my prefab. Now if I duplicate this, we still have a problem because if we go to the inside, there's these faces in between. Now it's helpful to have cubes when you're building because maybe you want your wall to look like this. But in this case, I know that this room is going to be square, so I don't want to make my prefab like this. But in this case, I'm going to select the face, press backspace to delete. And I'm going to delete all the faces that I don't need to have anymore. Okay, now that looks like a good wall unit. And so I'm going to... It's not the prefab though, so I'm going to break the prefab instance because I want the prefab to be the full cube. I'm going to use Control D to duplicate, and we're going to build the wall. Now when I rotate, I hold Control so that it rotates in 45-degree turns, and that's looking pretty good. I could probably select something like that. No, that's not going to work. So there, the rotation wasn't working good. I'm going to hold Control, and it's still okay. Now it's good. It's good. I just need to move it into place. Okay, duplicate one more time. And we got a pretty good looking room. The walls aren't lined up. It has dynamic lighting that's going to work on mobile VR. Let's take a look at it, see what it looks like. I got the camera. Looks like the camera's out here, stuck in a wall. All right. Looking good, looking good. Okay, I want to be able to walk around. So there's tutorials on this channel for how to do movement in mobile VR, but to make things fast, we have a pack. It's on the asset store. It's called Mobile VR Movement Pack, and so we're just going to import this and make things nice and easy. And I'll just use the auto walk script. So if I go to the VR movement pack and I go to the prefabs, I have this VR main auto walk. There we go. That should replace the main camera, so I'm going to delete the main camera. Now because I have the GVR viewer main, that should work for Google VR. And I'm stuck in a wall. There it is. Let's hit play. And it's just tap to walk and tap to stop. Okay, that's... So far we have a mobile VR game with some cool looking walls. The floor's okay. And it's playable and we can walk around it. Now, we need to connect this to another room, and after that, we're going to combine all of these wall units into one model. And there's an important step that we missed on the floor. So when we combined the model on the floor, it combined all of these quads with each other, which means there's 2 vertices at every single spot because, or more, there's 4 vertices at every single spot because each quad has a vertice. So we need to select, after we've combined that object, we need to select the entire object's vertices, and then we need to go to Weld Vertices. And that's going to weld 83 vertices, and that makes those 83 vertices, at each spot, it turns it into 1 vertice. So now if I were to select and move, it's going to move the entire floor up. And before, what would happen if I Control Z back? Then you'll see that when I move a vertice up, it just moves 1 up, 2, 3, and 4. So that's not good. We need to get rid of all those vertices. We need to select the entire vertices for the entire object and weld. Okay, now we're going to connect to another room. To make things nice and easy, because we're building with this block style, it's going to be as simple as selecting the walls and the floor, and duplicating. And I missed my selection, so I pressed Control Z to get it back. Now, let me increase the grid. So I'm going to move it to here. Control Z to get that selection back. There it is. Okay. All right, so we got the 2 rooms. I want this one to be half the size. So I'm going to go to face selection mode and select all of these faces. And delete them. And then it should be simple enough to use our box selection there. And so let's get this wall duplicated over. And rotate that around. Select all of it, and let's click the green box here so it moves on the 2 axis. And we're going to need to line it up with one of the walls here. It looks like, I think that's, well, we'll straighten it out in a second if we need to. So I'm going to use these to get rid of these 4 and build a passageway between. So that should be these 4. Now I'm not sure if these line up. What I'm going to do is select 2 walls, duplicate them, and then rotate. And I'm definitely using these for, other than just the arrows, I'm using these boxes. So if I click on the green box, I'm moving on those 2 axes. If I click the red, I'm moving on those 2. Let me duplicate the wall down. Okay, so yeah, we got a spacing issue. There we go. And then let's get this entire room selected. And we should be able to line it up. That looks good. All right, let's duplicate this wall. Whoops. Gotta make sure you hold control the entire time. There we go. And we need to get, now the floor is not going to work. So what I'm going to do here is, because the floor is an entire object, I can't duplicate it to get down here. So I'm going to select an edge. And I'm going to hold down Shift to extrude. And I want to make sure that it's the correct size. It's right there. It should be the same size as 2.5. And so now I'm going to select this face and hold down Control with the UV editor open. And a lot of times, if I'm not working in my project window, I like to just leave the UV editor open down here so that I can auto stitch whenever I want to. So that floor is going to go, we'll make this one go halfway in, and then we'll make this one come out to there. So holding Control to auto stitch, Shift to extrude the edge, and now everything is matched up. Okay, so we got the two rooms and they're completed. We can walk in between them, and we're gonna have to build a roof because that looks really bad. So what I'm gonna do for the roof is I'm just gonna use a well, we should do it right, and we should create a ceiling unit for our prefab. Okay, so I'm going to create a new shape. It's going to be a plane, and it's going to be facing up with the size of 2.5 by 2.5, 0 width, 0 length. That's going to make a quad. We want to face down for the ceiling. There we go. All right, let's build that plane. Alright, that looks like it's lined up. Let me pick a texture for it. As always, I need to make sure I set it to vertex lit. And we need to go to the UV editor, select the face, convert to manual, fit the UV, and convert back to auto. Alright, now we got a nice looking ceiling unit that can be, I'm going to go to, one thing I always do that's bad is I leave a face selection mode and I press Control D and duplicate. And that's not good. In this case it turned out it's okay, but it's bad. It gets the center pivot location messed up, and you're duplicating the face, not the object. So whenever you duplicate, make sure you have object mode selected, and we press Control D there. Okay, now we should have a nice looking level for mobile VR. Looks good. It has two rooms connected. And if we were to build and run, this would run great on our phone at 60 frames per second, but it has way too many vertices and way too many objects. We need to fix that now that we're all done editing our level. So because of a collision coiling, you don't want the entire level to be one mesh, but I think it's okay in this case to make each room an entire mesh. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select, I'm going to try to select, let's see, the easiest way to do this is going to be get rid of this middle part. So let me, the floor isn't going to stay at the middle because the floor is part of the two rooms because I extruded from the floor model. But let me select this entire mid piece, and I'm going to turn it off. Actually, I can let me just skip that. Let me combine it into a one object, and we'll call this hall. And I'm going to turn off hall for a minute because that's going to let me easily select everything that is in this room. But I don't want this, this, or this. Just the geometry. I'm going to go to merge objects. Okay, so that entire object. Room is one room large. I'm going to go to vertices. I'm going to select all the vertices. And I'm going to weld. Welded 670. That's a critical step. Those 670 vertices need to get eliminated. Okay. Now that those... And did I get the floor in there? No, the floor is still a separate object. That's fine. And I believe that we've already merged, but these ones aren't. So we need to merge vertices again. It picked up 2 new ones. Okay. So this is the floor for the room large. Let me turn that off, and then I'm going to select room large. I'm going to turn that off. Now we're just left with this one. We got floor room small. Let me turn that off, and we select everything. Merge. Select the vertices. Weld. And now we have a nice one object room. We're going to call it room small. Now we can turn back on room large, hall, the floors. And it looks the same, but it's fixed because you have to fix that geometry for performance and just general good practice. Now, if I turn off the sun and we look at our light here, you'll see the dynamic light is working, and it looks good throughout the whole level. So if I were to give the player a light and play the game, you'll see that wherever I walk, we're going to get red light. And so that's pretty hard to achieve with mobile VR because of performance. But in this case, because we're using Legacy Vertex Lit and we have a constant amount of vertices throughout the level, the lighting is going to respond properly. Okay, so there's going to be a lot more tutorials on ProBuilder, and we also got the giveaway coming up for ProBuilder Advanced and Polybrush. So stay tuned for that. We're going to cover a lot of stuff like the stairs, how to make stairs, how to make curved stairs, how to make some archways, and just more complicated stuff with ProBuilder. But this is a nice basic intro. 2 little rooms here. Hopefully it helps your VR game get built a lot faster. I know it does for me. All right, guys, remember to like, share, subscribe, and stay tuned for more VR, Unity, and ProCore tutorials coming up right here.